What's up, ladies and gentlemen? Welcome back to another episode of At Home with Mark. Today is season 4, episode 9, and we have Lindsey Ray, and I'm about to freak out on you and gush so hard. But thank you so much for doing this. I super appreciate it.
Oh, you're welcome. Thanks for having me.
And we can get into this later, but I just off the top here, I have to say, the first time I heard you sing was on Bleu's new record. And I was immediately like, who the hell is this? And I was driving with my kid who you met right before this, and I'm driving and she's like, who's this? I'm like, I don't know. When we get home, we're going to look it up. But what struck me immediately is just how powerful your voice is. Like that song in particular, man. And I talked to Bleu, because I've had him on here twice, and I asked him about it, and he's like, "Yeah, that day in the studio, I felt like I had to bring up my game." He's like, when you're singing with Lindsey, you gotta rise to the occasion.
Oh my gosh, that's funny.
It's so true. I mean, like your voice is just so good immediately. So I just want to say that off the top here. So thank you for being on that record. I'm so glad I found you. But we can get back into that session and how you guys met and all that stuff. But my first question to you, and I ask this of everyone, and I think this is like such an interesting thing, is, but like, what is your first musical memory? Like your earliest musical memory? Can you think back and find that?
First musical memory. I mean, probably my dad singing or something. I grew up in a really musical family, but my father in particular was just like had a golden crooner, like Frank Sinatra type voice, he sounds more like Dean Martin or something, but he was just just a great singer and always playing the piano. So old home videos of me at like 2 years old, I'm always singing because he's playing and stuff. So I mean, it started really, really young for me, and we have pictures of me in diapers holding a microphone.
That doesn't surprise me.
It was immediate.
That's awesome. So, because I didn't grow up in a musical family, so I love. Let's dig in a little bit here. So, did your dad like teach you piano? Like, how did you like?
No,
find your
I
way?
play by ear. My father played by ear as well. So I just was around it, I guess. And I think like it's just so heavy in the family DNA. Like every family party and gathering growing up, I didn't think much of it because it was just my life, right? But everybody like took turns playing the piano, and everybody played by ear. Nobody read music or was trained or anything. It was just a natural thing, and everyone sang, and so all the aunts and my grandparents and everybody. So yeah, I just kind of grew up around it, and I loved it. I was obsessed, and I loved jazz standards growing up. Like I was a kind of an old soul. Like I loved big band music and anything that was like, the standard songbook basically. And like my older sister would make fun of me. She was like, "You're so weird," because at 10 years old, I was like listening to Natalie Cole's Unforgettable album instead of the top 40 pop radio. I was like, no, but this song Autumn Leaves is so great.
Because what was on the radio at that time that you should have been listening to, in her opinion? Like,
well, in all fairness, I did listen to the radio as well, but it would have been like, I don't know. I mean, I was born in '83, so early '90s, and it was like we loved New Kids on the Block in our household, and I loved Debbie Gibson and Janet Jackson and Paula Abdul and all that kind of stuff, or whatever was
but jazz
Michael Jackson, and like growing up with like Billy Ocean was a really heavy in rotation record growing up in our house.
Okay.
Yeah.
But the jazz standards were where your heart was, like.
That's where my heart was, for sure. That, and like there was one other CD that my parents had that was a musical, and I honestly, I don't know if it was called Crazy for You. Do you know? I don't even actually know if it was a musical or what it was, but I remember it was called Crazy for You. It was some album, and it had that song, and I thought, I've got rhythm, I've got music, that old song, and I loved that song.
Yeah.
And I would like dance around singing it, and I was like, yeah, I got it. And I was just so weird. I don't know. I just like, I wanted to be one of those kind of classic, like I was obsessed with the movie Annie and her tap dancing at the end. I was like, I gotta get into tap dancing lessons. I'm gonna be a dancer, I'm gonna be an actor, I'm gonna be a singer. Like I wanted to do the full thing.
Okay.
But I didn't. So, never did take a dance class, but I still feel like I could do it.
Yeah, I'm sure you could. I mean, it's funny, the That whole era of like, I love Dean Martin. So like when you're like more Dean Martin, I'm like, yeah, that's more my bag anyway.
Mm.
But like jazz standard wise, it's so interesting to like hear that at such a young age. Like what drew you? What do you think drew you in? Was it the voice? Was it the like musician prowess? Like what was it?
I think it was both. I mean, I think it was the vocals, but for me, it's so, oh my gosh, like I could just geek out on just chord structure and production and strings and all the just the like I love classical music as well. And I think I mean I love everything. I honestly genuinely am one of those people that like except for probably like death metal, like it's a little too angry for me, but
Mm.
everything else like if it's musical, I love it. I love anything that makes me feel anything. So like I also was obsessed with movie scores when I
Mm.
was your daughter's age. Like when I was in that kind of junior high age, like any movie that I watched, like Braveheart, that theme song for some reason stuck out to me. And so I would go and learn, my brother and I would both take turns learning how to play our favorite movie scores on the piano. And so I don't know. Yeah, I think it was all of it, but I don't know. Yeah,
Yeah.
I guess it was both. It's hard for me to say that it was one or the other.
Yeah.
I don't know. It just all did.
Did you branch out a little bit, like in terms of like different subgenres of jazz and like get into things like fusion or were you just like, no, like straight
Not
ahead?
really. No, I mean, I really just listened to whatever was being played in the house. So I
Mhm.
just kind of, I didn't like go out and seek it myself, I guess. It was just sort of like every night at dinner, there was either Tony Bennett or Frank Sinatra, or there was this guy, Michael, I think his name was Michael Feinstein or something. There was some album that
Mhm.
we had. Um, anyway, that was kind of fun. But yeah, just I didn't dig in on my own, and I guess I mean I do like other types of jazz. Like I've been to New Orleans and heard stuff, and I love anything that's like fun like that. But the kind that's like super kind of chaotic, like I don't love that necessarily.
Right.
Because I just want to hear. I guess I want to hear the vocals as well. That's
Mhm.
kind of the thing. But then again, I don't know because I love big band, so I don't know. I guess I'm contradicting myself.
Well, it's cool because I feel like I guess your songwriting history and your songwriting education was like those songs, like the
Yeah.
harmonic structure, like you're talking about, like everybody like talks about, like Jamie Cullum always talks about Cole Porter. You know what I
Hmm.
mean? Like, so there's like, there's a sophistication to what you do as a musician that I hear, and I
Hmm.
can tell that you have that sophistication,
Oh, well.
and it probably now it all makes sense because it's coming from that.
Well, what's funny too is when I was younger and people would ask me questions like this, like I wasn't as open as talking about that because I think I felt like I was supposed to say like, "Oh yeah, I grew up loving, I don't even know what it would be, like the Beatles." Like everybody says the Beatles. I didn't grow up on the Beatles. I don't know what. My dad was a musician for sure, but I didn't hear it. So the first time I really got into the Beatles was that movie I Am Sam. Do you remember that with Sean
I
Penn?
Yep.
And the whole movie was Beatles covers, and I didn't know that, but I loved it, and I bought the soundtrack, and I was playing it in the car, and my dad said, these are all Beatles songs, right?" And I was like, "No, I think I love the Beatles." And so for my birthday that year, he bought me Abbey Road and I don't remember what the other one was, but two like really well-known albums, and I just like devoured them, and I was like, "Oh my God, the Beatles are the best! Like I get it, it's
Mhm.
incredible."
Yeah. Yeah.
So yeah, I don't know, I just think anything that's like super musical and sort of not stuck in one lane, like I've
Mhm.
never been interested in an artist that always sounds the same
Yeah, me too.
unless I'm going to them for that one thing and I'm like, okay, I really want to like feel like Rufus Wainwright, I guess. Like I love him, I'm obsessed with him too, but again, he even, I don't know how familiar you are with him, but he kind of, he has things that are more poppy or things that are a little more rock, or sometimes he's very classical and musical theater sounding, and then he can be singer songwriter. So yeah, I guess I'm just drawn to like versatility.
Yeah. No, I totally get that. I love his dad too. I love Loudon Wainwright's music. Do you ever
I
listen to
don't
him?
know it. I don't know it as
Oh,
well. No, but I know his dad is really famous and his
yeah.
mom, and like I know, I never dug into any of them. I just was Rufus's voice for me, like his tone
Mhm.
and the way he plays the piano and like and again like the movements, he's just like a classical I don't know. He's like some sort of modern day like Mozart, but with like the voice of an opera singer. He's incredible.
Yeah, he's great. I saw him open up for Ben Folds.
Oh,
I don't know how long ago that was. It was a while ago, but like that was the first time I'd ever seen him. And I felt the same way about his voice as I feel about you. Like it was just like this presence and just the volume and like,
no.
it's just he definitely has that thing. And then to see Ben Folds come after that and smash the piano, it's still
I can't even imagine. That's a crazy show to get to go to. Did
yeah.
they do a duet of Careless Whisper? Do you remember?
They
Because
might
I
have.
went down a deep dive on YouTube in my early 20s of Rufus, and I remember
Yeah.
finding that he and Ben Folds had done at some point Careless Whisper together, and it was like they were laughing and having fun doing it, but it was really good.
I'm pretty sure you're correct. I'm like pretty certain that that happened because we were at the show. It was at Wolf Trap in Virginia, which is a
Mm,
gorgeous venue, outdoor venue, like a pavilion venue, and it
mm.
was an amazing night, like weather-wise. And I just remember it was like a perfect night with my wife and I on a date to go see that show.
Yeah.
But
Yeah, that
but
sounds perfect.
Ben is like one of my favorites too. Like in terms of, I just was going on a deep dive on YouTube about Ben Folds 5 because they are the loudest concert I've ever been to, hands down.
Really?
And I've seen Pearl Jam a million
Huh.
times and all these bands from the 90s a million times that I love. And they were the loudest band I've ever seen. Three guys,
Mm.
piano, bass, and drums. I was like, what?
Just because he's like banging on it so hard or something? Like, doesn't
I,
he like stand up or something when he does a lot of crazy stuff, huh?
yeah, and it's probably that bass with the fuzz on it, and like Darren Jesse smacks the crap out of the drums. So it's
Mm.
like that combination of those three guys is pretty magical, but it was loud. So
Mm.
well let me get back into, so we talked about like early records and stuff. That's kind of where I was going to go with that. But as far as like songwriting, like when did you write your first song? How old were you?
Well, technically I was like 8 years old because I have
Uh-huh.
I had this old notebook and I remember doing it. It's weird. Like I have a very vivid memory of being in my room and I was in second grade and we were learning about like the earth and taking care of the earth and having to preserve water and all those things. And I took it super seriously. Like I was like, oh my God, we're gonna run out of water.
Yeah.
Oh my God, this is really
Hmm.
serious. And I wrote a song called Save the Children.
Oh.
I don't know what the melody was, but I remember like writing it on the bus and writing it in this notebook. And I still have the notebook somewhere in my storage. And it's like the lyrics are, oh my gosh, it's like, come on, people, we got to save the earth, we got to save the children.
It's the
So
truth.
technically that was the beginning. And then when I think I was like 14 or 15, my brother was listening to like a Busta Rhymes album underneath, like in the room underneath me, and all I could hear was the bass line, and I wrote a song to that. And then anyway, yeah. So like I had little spurts here and there where I would do it, but I never thought I was good at it. So I always thought of myself as a singer, and I was like, okay, I just need to I need to get discovered, and I need someone to
Mhm.
write the songs for me. And at that age, I was thinking like, if I could just like meet Puffy, like
Yeah.
I know I could do this. Like I was so into R&B. Like in my junior high years, it was all Brandy and Monica, Mary J. Blige, Brian McKnight, um, all that kind of stuff. And so yeah, so and then I took a long break and I really focused like, okay, I'm gonna actually write songs. And that was at about 23.
Okay.
So I was kind of late. I mean, I feel like I was late to the game.
You were working on your chops, you know?
I guess, yeah. And honestly, like I worked with a lot of people in studios in high school. Like I would go down to New York City, and there was this one particular studio that I worked with people at, and they were kind of trying to help develop me to pitch me for labels and stuff. And I don't know, they always wrote the songs, and I just sang the parts, and
Mhm.
I never even considered that I could do it on my own. And then I met a guy in my hometown who saw me perform, and he actually, circle back to Ben Folds, he had produced some Ben Folds stuff, and he was sort of more famous for what's his name? Oh my gosh, G Love and Special Sauce,
Oh,
his
yeah.
first album.
Yeah.
like Baby's Got Sauce. Like this guy had
Oh yeah.
produced that stuff, and he now was living in my tiny hometown in Maine and happened to see me perform with a reggae band and was like, "Who are you and why are you in this town and what are you doing with your life?"
Yep.
And I was like, I don't know. I'm kind of like, I was like scorned. And I told him my whole story at that point, which was that I had already like showcased for labels, had already almost signed a record deal, but hated the music and walked away thinking I was like so bold. And I was like, no, I'm going to do it my way. Anyway, and then he was the one that said, listen, like, you got to start writing your own songs. And I was like, okay. So I did.
That's pretty awesome. I mean,
Yeah.
I feel like you need people in your life like that to kind of smack you upside the head and be like,
Yeah.
"Hey, reevaluate this because you've got it." You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
because for you, like growing up in New England and like up in Maine, like, what was the scene like? Was there a lot of live music happening, like where you grew up, or was it kind of like
Uh, I
sparse?
mean, I wasn't aware. I think there was. I just wasn't super aware of it because, again, I was sort of more in that like pop mentality of thinking that I need to, be on a label and I need to go to New York and work with these like hip hop producers because I full on wanted to be an R&B artist. Like when
Hmm.
Pink first came out and I saw her video on BET and I was like, oh my god, she's on BET. Like
Yeah.
she can do that. Like I was like, and I was so excited. And then I was like, that's what I want to do. So anyway, eventually, like when I was in my early 20s and I didn't end up going to college, I started then getting into the local scene and kind of being more aware of what was going on. And once I tapped into it, yeah, there was a lot of it. There were a lot of people, cover bands and stuff, but also singer songwriters like from my hometown or neighboring kind of little country towns that would go around and like their whole thing was touring New England and playing
Hmm.
universities and doing that whole circuit. And they did pretty well.
Yeah. I mean, it's Portland has a pretty cool scene.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
I hung out there a bunch when I was living up in Boston. It's a really cool town too. Like, there's a
Yes.
lot going on. So,
Yeah.
um, well
A lot of
then,
open mics there. Like I used to go down there and kind of test out new songs and see if I had anything.
yeah. So at that time, so if you're like middle school, high school, like super into R&B, like digging into that stuff, and like, so did you like did voodoo blow your head off
Oh my
your
gosh.
cranium as much as it did mine? I mean, that was like,
Yes, I was obsessed with D'Angelo. Yes.
yeah,
But honestly, more into the first album, Brown
yeah,
Sugar. Like
yeah,
that whole album is perfection top to bottom for me.
yeah.
And
It re-
Voodoo is great for sure, but I never like sat and listened to the full album the way that I did the first one.
yeah, yeah. Did you develop all of like your R&B stuff and like your pentatonic loveliness? Did you get all that stuff? Was that like early on, like in middle school, that was like in you
Oh,
already?
yeah.
Man,
Yeah.
crazy.
Yeah. Like, I don't remember intentionally doing it or going after it. I just remember that, like, for example, I remember one day I was homesick from school and, like, watching, I think, what was that show? Regis and Kathy Lee at the time. It was Kathy Lee. And Brian McKnight was the musical guest, and he played this song. I don't remember which song of his that it was, but it was from like his first album, I think. Anyway, it really affected me, and I was like, "Who is this guy? And what is this?" Yet again, kind of like Rufus, it wasn't pop. It wasn't. It was just somewhere like off the main road, of
Mhm.
music. And but it was so musical, and he had all these crazy. His voice, all the runs and stuff, and it was jazzy. It had everything that I like about music. And so I went and my dad didn't even know this, but like we would get those magazines for Columbia House where you'd pay like a cent, like a penny and you get 12 CDs. So I
Yeah.
signed up for that without my dad knowing so that I could get this Brian McKnight album. And so that was kind of probably the start of me getting into more soulful R&B type stuff, even
Mm.
though truthfully, I mean, all the early jazz stuff is also that, right?
Yeah.
But it was different. Brian McKnight was different. And then when Brandy first came out, I was in sixth grade when Brandy's first album came out, and she wasn't that much older than me, and I was just obsessed with her and her voice. So I was always singing along to it, and I think I sort of, at a really early age, I developed, just like if you like work out a certain way, you develop certain muscles. Like my muscles move in that way.
Yeah.
And in fact, when I first started going to work at a studio in New York when I was 16 or whatever, the comment was always, they were like, wow, you sound like Brandy. And I was like,
Yeah.
totally what I'm going for. And I would change my tone and I would use a lot of the like deeper, lower parts of my voice. but like I was obsessive. Like I would practice over and over one lick that she would do. I would do it until I could do it.
Wow. Wow.
And now I
Mm.
don't have to think about it. Like now it is like 100%. It just sort of happens. But at the time, it was just because I loved it so much and I just wanted to do it.
Yeah. Man, it's crazy now because when I listen to you sing now, it's you. Like I don't hear other stuff, other influences, and I think that's where you want to get to, right? Like you want to be
Yeah,
you.
yeah, yeah. No, for sure. Thank you. That makes me feel
Yeah, I
good.
mean, I swear to God, like I to say, and I wrote this in the comment as far as describing this video, but like to say that it left me breathless is an understatement. Like
Uh,
there are times when I listen to music, like do you ever like hear a new song on the radio and then like we're probably similar in this, like that you do obsess over it, like listen to it
yeah,
so much and then like start
yeah.
dissecting like Ben Rector has a new song out called Living My Best Life.
Mm,
And it's super poppy, and I don't know if you're familiar with his music, but like
a little bit.
it's like that like pop rock kind of like fun vibe kind of thing. And like Ben Foldsy in a way to an extent, but like his lyrics are always so great, his melodies are also great. But what I like about obsessing about that stuff is when you find a hook or you find something that you really like, usually it's reminiscent of something that you may
Hmm.
be familiar with. Obviously, as a writer, we kind of have to like navigate those waters, but like I like digging in and like even like the drum sounds on that song
Mm,
are just so good. Like I don't know who played on it. I still haven't looked up who played on it, but just the way that the music is captured. And that's another thing too with like the other side of you as a writer, as a producer and an arranger too. Like that stuff. Did you just like once you started getting in the studio and working more and more, you're like, I can do that. Like,
yeah. Well, so again, it wasn't necessarily a conscious decision that like, oh, I'm going to do this. When I look back at it now, I can kind of it's always like hindsight's 2020, right? So I can look backwards and go like, "Oh yeah, I was always doing that." So like I was the artist in the beginning when I was in the studio where I would well, I mean, it depends on the producer I was working with, but sometimes I think people thought I kind of overstepped a little bit because I wasn't just like the singer girl that would sit there and be like, "Yeah, sure, whatever you want." I would want to write the horn lines. I would be like, "No, they should be playing this," and I would sing the part that I wanted them to play, and I knew exactly the tone of the guitar that I wanted, and I would try to like explain that. And so in my early days, I got a little bit more pushback because I was just really green and new, and I think they were kind of like, "Kid, let me show you the way. You don't know what you're
right.
doing." And then once I had, yeah, been in the studio enough and kind of gotten to a point in my career where I was done people pleasing and I was kind of more at a point where I was like, all right, I've done this for years, everybody else's way, and I know how I want to do it. Do I know if I'll be successful? No, but I know that the only way I'm going to enjoy this moving forward is if I like take some control back. And
Mhm.
so I did. I started just only working with people that let me be collaborative in that way. And I was always asking questions when people were producing and like watching them do stuff in Pro Tools or Logic or whatever. So at one point I was dating a guy that was a producer and he showed me how to comp in Pro Tools. So everything he and I recorded together, I was like, can I please comp it? And he would be like, yeah, fine. Like, I don't want to do it.
Yeah.
And then he started having me comp other records he worked on. Like he was
Oh,
working on all kinds of records of all these hotel cafe, artists, singer songwriter artists in LA. And I would love it because he would come home and he would be like, "Cool, I got this whole rec. Can you comp this?" And I'd be like, "Yeah!" Like, and I would just spend like
nice.
hours. Like, I was obsessed with like getting the perfect take put together of people's vocals and being like, "Here you go, listen to you now."
Man, that's
So
cool.
yeah, I just kind of, and then I started learning because I just kept doing that. And then again, like I didn't start producing until I think it was 2016 or 2017, the first time I ever produced anything. And I still haven't done it a whole lot. I just kind of had like a small period there where I did it one time and it came out pretty good. I was like under a time crunch. I had 24 hours to make a song that was going to get pitched to like Payless or something for a commercial. And I knew that they wanted it to have something to do with writing your own story. So I wrote a song called Write My Story. And I just kind of like did whatever I could and just kept it as simple as I could. And then I didn't get that spot, but that song ended up doing really, really well for me in sync licensing. And then I was like, huh, that's weird. I didn't know I was a producer.
Yeah.
But then again, like I said, and then once I started thinking about it, I was like, actually, yeah, because every time I hear a song, I never hear just a melody. I always hear the full thing. and it's overwhelming to me sometimes. I mean, I imagine everyone's like that. I'm not sure, but like every song that comes to me, and that's how it usually is. Like I don't feel like I have to sit down and go, okay, and then where should this go based on music theory? Like it's not that. It's in my head, and then I have to play it by ear based on what the radio in my head is telling me how it goes.
Right. Okay.
So it's like they just kind of like get downloaded, and then I'm like, oh, and like
Nice.
hearing all the parts, and now I at least have the means where I know I can communicate that to somebody, or I can try to dig and find it myself, and I love it. Like I love it.
Yeah. So does the top line come in first, like the vocal, like melody or something come in first, and then everything goes around it immediately? Or is it like you
It
kind of hear a groove, or like how does it start?
it depends. It's gone anyway. So I don't know. It's usually the chords. It's usually like I'll sit down and play the piano and find a progression that I like, and then immediately, melodies will start coming, and I'll just kind of fumble through it. But yeah, sometimes I guess it's been just vocals first before the chords. But at the same time, if I'm hearing a melody in my head, I'm hearing the chords under it. It's just that I don't know off the top of my head what they are. I have to come to the piano and then find them. But
Right.
it all kind of comes at once. And then unless I'm really trying, like if I have nothing and I'm in a session, then I'll be like, okay, let's like get inspired. And then I might like start with a beat or something.
Hmm.
But yeah, like when it's those like magic moments of it just kind of popping into my head, when it's usually inconvenient, or like I'm like driving or something, or cooking or watching TV, and I'm like, dang, I guess I gotta get up and write this because this is not going away.
Yeah. That's my next question I was going to ask you. Is there weird places where it comes to you more often? Because I know that I've talked to
Always when
so many.
I'm not asking for it to. It's
Yeah.
never when I want it to. It's never like, oh, I have a session that starts at 11. Great. It would be really great if something would come to me right now. It's always when I'm doing other things, like cleaning my house, or so, sometimes I like to just go outside and like shoot hoops, and like I'll be playing basketball, and or driving, or in the shower. I get a lot of ideas in the shower, which is probably pretty typical of creative people.
Yeah.
But yeah, it just kind of, I don't know. It's just like I feel like I'm pretty lucky because it's like it's very rare for me to feel like I have no ideas.
Yeah.
Like the lyrics are always the hardest part for me. That comes last. Like I don't tend to go into a song like, oh, I really want to talk about saving the children. It's just sort of like it's always the music and the progressions and all the production and the melodies, and then it's like the sound of what I want the words to be. So I'll start like, improving the melodies, and I know like, oh, this word's gonna have to end in an O. Like it's got to be an O sound. It has to be.
Yeah.
And then I just sort of work backwards. Once I know what the tagline of the song is, like the end of the chorus, like I always try to write that first, because I'm like, okay, well, what's this about? Like, what is the real meat here? And then I fill in all the holes around it and write. I usually write backwards.
Oh, okay. That's pretty
Yeah,
sweet. I had
yeah.
are you hip to the Wood Brothers? They're Nashvillians.
No, no, the Wood Brothers. No,
Yeah, the Wood,
I don't know anything though. I'm kind of like I'm out of the loop, I think,
you
in
should, I think
Nashville.
you would really love the Wood Brothers.
Okay,
But check them out. There's a record called The Muse. That's a good place to start.
okay,
But I had Oliver on, who's the main singer guitar player, and he was talking about this. He was talking about like, I can't remember the name of the book, but he was talking about how when our brains as creative people are occupied doing something else, like driving or cooking, or if you're in the shower or whatever it may be, that it allows the other creative side of your brain to open and to
for
be
sure.
able to like harness whatever it is that's going on in your universe that's not the busy work that you're doing at that moment. And I was like, oh wow, that's amazing, because it's like it's such a split, the dichotomy of like normal Lindsey cooking a meal and like badass singer Lindsey coming up with an idea. You know what I mean? It's like, and then how do you marry those things and like in life and be able to take care of your laundry and your dishes and all that
I
stuff, but also
know.
continue to write and not feel burdened, you know what I mean, by writing.
Yeah, yeah.
But
Well,
it's
it's
yeah.
funny because I didn't know that there was a book where someone talks about that. I definitely know. I've talked to other creatives about this, and I've had people say like, yeah, it works for me that way too. And I think it's sort of like, I always think of the Magic Eye posters back in the day, where
Hmm.
like if you wanted the image to actually pop out at you, you couldn't you couldn't look at it like you were looking at a normal picture. You had to kind of almost like let your eyes sort of get out of focus and kind of like almost go cross-eyed for a second,
Yeah.
and then it comes out. So I think it's kind of like a good analogy for that same thing that we're talking about, where it's like if you're so hyper focused on like this has to happen, or I want to be creative right now, it's like you're not in a creative space, because so creativity to me is like you are now a vessel. You are allowing some sort of energy to come through you. Like that sounds a little woo woo, but like that's how it feels to me. Like I feel like the best songs for me, they just sort of show up when they want to, and I have to be willing to receive them and let them come in and like kind of help guide them into existence. It's like I don't even really feel like I'm doing it most of the time, because every time that I have sat down and really tried, it's harder to hear. It gets like a little cloudy, it's a little further away. And if I don't, it's just that same, it's like approaching a cat, you know what I mean? You can't approach them fast, you got to let them come to you.
So how did it work? So Bleu talked a little bit about this when you guys got in the studio to do that track. How you guys were like, because you didn't have anything, right? You guys just came together and wrote that day.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He was just in town and he was like, we should hang out, because it had been a long time.
Yeah. How did
And
you
I
know
never
him?
say no to Bleu.
Yeah.
So Bleu and I got set up to write, I don't know, years ago in LA. I don't even remember when. It would have been probably 2008 or 9 or something. And we wrote a couple of songs, and it was in my early days of my career where I still didn't really know what my sound was or what I was even aiming for. So we just kind of like wrote like a kind of a cute, like whimsical song. I don't know. And then years later, somehow, oh, I know what it was. You know what it was? The one tour that I ever did ever in my life was with Bleu, and it was opening for Bleu. And then his friend Taylor Locke's band at the time. I don't remember what they were called, Taylor and the something, but and we did like a little like short 2-week run up the West Coast. And so that was where I really like became friends with Bleu. Like I had known him and written with him, but my manager at the time was friends with his manager, and she's like, please bring Lindsey, like we need to do some promotion or whatever. And so he did. And so I'm like in a van with all these dudes for 2 weeks, and Blue's just like, I mean, Blue's hilarious, and he's just like, his personality is just so big, and I loved that. And yeah, we just kind of bonded, and then we eventually started writing together more regularly, and we were like kind of getting together, not to write for either of ourselves as artists, but just to try to get some pop cuts and stuff. And actually my first pop cut was with Bleu. It was a Demi Lovato song that we wrote together called In Real Life on her Unbroken album.
I didn't know that. That's so cool.
Yeah. Nice. And it was cool too, because it was one of those things where like Bleu had played me this track in a bunch, like every time I wrote with him, he'd played me this track, and I was like, I don't know, man, like I just wasn't really feeling it. It was like this, it sounded like a carnival, and now looking back, I'm like, it's really cool. But anyway, I said no to it a bunch of times, and he's like, we're writing to this track today. And I was like, oh, all right, fine. And so we did. And like a week later, he emailed me and said, this is so weird, but Demi Lovato's A&R just heard this, and she's cutting it next week and like keeping your background vocals and everything. And I'm like, it would just happen super fast.
Oh man, that's super cool. How long were you in LA? How long did you live
I was
there?
in LA for 6 years, 2008 to 2014.
Okay.
Yeah.
Was that like a super formative, like you really kind of bounced into the industry and like made your connections at that time?
Yeah, I mean, I kind of had started before. So when I was still living in Maine, when MySpace was a thing, I posted a video of myself performing at a open mic in San Francisco. And it was like one of the first songs I'd ever written. And my friend and I were on vacation, and he filmed it. I put it on MySpace and entered it into some sort of contest that was on MySpace, where like a label or something was looking at stuff. Anyway, and the label ended up calling me, and they were like it was this contest where like if you win, you get some sort of a deal or whatever. And so anyway, they sent me the contract, and I was like, I don't know, like this doesn't look good, I'm not going to do it. And they called me, and they were like, look, behind the curtain, we're just going to let you know you're going to win this competition if you do this. And I was like, well, I'm not signing this deal. And so then they were like, okay, well, can we fly you to New York, and we want to like introduce you, like we want to hear you play live. And so I flew, and I met with them, and they were a small indie label that was helped out by Epic Records at the time. So Epic, like the head of Epic Records, Charlie Walk, he was there at the meeting, and I played this beautiful Steinway grand piano that like they were like, oh, Tony Bennett's played that.
Oh
Which,
man,
of course, I loved.
Yeah.
And so anyway, that was kind of how that whole thing started. So I signed this like 360 indie deal that like wasn't a great deal, but whatever. It got me out of Maine. They started sending me to LA to write and to meet people. So I had already been going to LA pretty often for about a year before I moved there. So it's not like I just moved there cold without knowing anybody. I already had a manager. I had a lot of collaborators. And so anyway, it was a little bit
Right.
easier, I guess, just because I had some foundation there. And then, yeah, I just started networking and I just hustled. I said
Yeah.
yes to everything. Any session that anyone set me up on, I took it, and I started learning what I liked and what I didn't like and who I liked working with and who I didn't like working with, and just
Yeah.
slowly figured it out. I mean, when I think about it now, it sounds like sort of so simple, but it was, it was a lot of years of grinding
Yeah. I know. This industry,
with very little result, like no results, just
I
feeling like
know.
such a loser.
Well, I mean, it paid off because like so all the sync stuff that you do as well. I mean, that's a side hustle thing that a lot of artists maybe a couple years only until a couple years ago did people start thinking about, "Oh, I can do that too." Because for
Yeah.
how for a long time people were like, "That's selling out." I'm like,
Yeah.
"No, no, son, that's paying your bills and doing it with music. That's not selling out, man."
Well, speaking of which, so that's how I made my first money in LA. So my father passed away right before I moved to LA.
Oh,
So my dad was sick for like 3 years. I was living in Maine, kind of taking care of him. I lived with him, and then I would play gigs on the weekends. I was a wedding singer in a wedding band. I was in a reggae band. Like I just kind of like did whatever I could to, still keep doing the music thing. I had signed this deal, so every now and then I would go to LA for a week or whatever and work. And so I was just kind of like living this interesting life where I was like starting my career, but also very much home based, taking care of my dad. And as soon as he passed away, of course, I was just like, all right, well, there's nothing left for me here. And
yeah.
I need to now go live my life. And so I packed up 2 suitcases, went out to LA and never turned back. And so that was how I initially got there. But what I was going to say was that my very first thing, like income that ever came in LA, was from a Target commercial that I landed.
Mm,
And I had written it with this guy, Tim Myers, and Tim was one of the early sync people. Like he knew what he was doing. Like even back in 2008, like he was intentionally writing songs that he knew would be syncable. And he was the king of the sync game. Like every car commercial was Tim Myers.
wow.
Yeah,
Wow.
and so I wrote with him, and he was like, "What do you want to write today?" And I was really into Feist and the Reminder, that album, and remember that song, "I Feel It All," I feel it all, I
Yep.
feel like that tempo. I was like, I just want something that like hits like this. So he started strumming the guitar like that, and we wrote this song. And a couple months later, it was a Target commercial, and I was like, "Oh my god, I made it! It's
Yeah.
happening!"
Dude, 100%, man.
That's
That's
what it
like
felt like. It was
I'm
huge.
sure. Yeah, I'm
Yeah.
sure. And you're continuing to do it, right? Like you're continually getting stuff
Well,
placed.
yes. So now it's more intentional. At that time, like that was just sort of like I got lucky. Tim was the king. I happened to write a song with him. Like I kind of give all kudos to Tim for that, really, truly.
Mhm.
And but it did, like it helped some money start coming in. It opened up a different part of my brain as a writer because I saw what he did to make that syncable, and I picked his brain about it, and I was like, I want to start doing that. So I did. I wrote a few songs with that in mind. And so here and there I would get sync placements, and it would keep me able to afford rent in LA. Like really that was kind of keeping me alive. Because at one point I was getting SAG checks for like a You'll Play Yogurt commercial, and I lived off of that for like 2 years. Like that was huge for me. So I just
Dope.
was one of those people that was always lucky enough that like right as money was running out, something miraculously always came in and would work out. And like, are you familiar with DJ Tiesto by any chance?
No, I'm not.
He's this I don't really listen to that kind of music, but it's like, like that dance, like club, like rave type music.
Like
He's a big,
EDM type stuff?
yes,
Yeah.
yes. And so he's a really big, or he was at the time, I don't know if he still is, but he was like the guy. He's this I think he's Dutch or something, but he was huge in Europe. And he happened to hear my voice on a demo that I sang for something else. And anyway, long story short, his people had reached out to me and they were like, "Hey, we want you to sing this song." So I didn't write the song, but I sang something that he ended up putting out. And then that also helped because like that paid me, and then that helped get some fans going. So it was always like the most random things that I didn't even go after.
Mhm.
And then they would just keep the ball rolling. And then it wasn't until 2015, I would say. I signed a deal with Secret Road. They're a company out in LA, and they're really known for their music licensing. Like that's what they started as with Ingrid Michaelson. They were pitching all her stuff, and they landed her a lot of. They kind of built her career off of sync. And so once I signed with them, I was like, okay, major sync company. I've had some sync history. Yes, it's not necessarily what I'm going for, but man, I might as well like throw a couple of lottery tickets in there. So I started doing it, and then it just took off. And I was like, well, this is just like, I've never received as much of a yes from the universe as I did when I started doing that. So I was like, all right, well, this feels good, because I had literally years of like, I would get a cut here or there, but it was never like the single, it was never enough to like feel financially stable. And I really just, I was stuck. I was really stuck. And then sync opened things up for me in a way that I felt like, okay, I don't need to think about what are the labels looking for? What's Demi Lovato want for her new single? Like, I don't have to think about the things that feel so out of my reach still. All I have to think about is like hooks. Like, I can write hooks. So let's just do something hooky and let's just have fun. And then my boyfriend and I at the time, we started writing like fun punk songs and rock songs. And I like started pulling out like Beastie Boys references and things that were in like Weezer and all the stuff that I listened to in junior high that I didn't even know I loved that much until I started writing bass lines. And I was like, oh, interesting. Rage Against the Machine, highly influential on my music taste. I had no idea. And,
Yeah.
And then I just started having fun. And then it was like that cheesy kind of thing that about that happens in the world where it's like, if you're doing the thing because you love it and you're actually like, if joy is happening while you're creating it, like other people feel that. It's just that energy transfers and then it comes back to you.
100%. We're sitting here right now talking because that song brought me so much joy. I had to reach out to you after I talked to Bleu. Really, I'm not blowing smoke, Lindsey. There's like a group of musicians that I constantly go back to, and if I talk about female musicians like Fiona Apple or Susan Tedeschi or people like that, where I'm just like a Bonnie Raitt or like whatever,
love,
and I put you in that crew because it's like your voice just has like an immediacy. Like I know I keep saying that, but there's like an immediacy about it that just it feels so good to listen to, and it's like palpable.
Mark.
And that's how I'm sorry.
That's so nice. No, that's so nice. Like, that's just really like, I don't know that I deserve that praise, but it's really, really nice. Thank you. Cause I've like, it's also one of those things where I spent so many years, like I have one of those voices where I almost feel like I'm a voice actor sometimes. Cause I can change my voice. I can change the tone of it. Like as a joke one time when I was writing a sync song, they were like, can you sound more Rihanna? And I was like, yeah. And I like did this thing where I was like, and then like I just like did it in the back of my throat and it was just like kind of nasal and raspy and they were like, whoa, you're really good at that. And I was like, weird, I didn't know I could do that. And then I started like intentionally changing my voice depending on the song I was writing, and that worked for me in sync too. Like one of my biggest sync songs, like I sang it in a certain way that just felt like that's how that song should be sung. It wasn't me going, well, who am I as an artist and what do I, you know what I mean? I was just kind of like having fun. And so anyway, my point is for you to say that it affects you or that it makes you feel that way is it's just like really satisfying because I've spent a lot of years like honing that instrument, if you will. That sounds cheesy, but you know what I mean?
Not cheesy at all. Like if there's anything that I like wish I could change about, like I can't change my physiology, and I've been a singer my whole life, but man, like E above middle C is scary for me. And I've been trying to work on expanding my range. I bought these stupid singing straw things. Have you ever seen those?
I've heard about those. I've never used it, but I've heard about it.
Dude, they're great. And like what's weird is I used to have my favorite thing for a long period of time, because I'm a huge Jeff Buckley fan, is I had a very strong falsetto, and I lost my voice on a gig one night and I don't have it anymore. It's gone.
Do you have vocal nodes, do you think?
I've gotten checked and no, everything's fine. And like the one vocal coach I talked to was like, dude, this has got to be like psychosomatic. I think you're psyching yourself out. Like you need to like work on, like, then they suggested like get these, work on your breath support. But like to hear a singer like you, that it's just like so effortless. And I feel that way about like James Taylor, like James Taylor is just like Willy Wonka golden ticket pouring out of his mouth,
Mhm,
you know,
mhm.
every song.
Yeah,
Or
yeah.
Ray Charles. Ray Charles is like one of my ultimate favorite
Oh,
singers.
love Ray Charles.
And it's just, I really appreciate singers, and I really appreciate people who can do it well and be a chameleon like you're talking about, where you can change it and you can make it match the vibe of the tune. A lot of people don't know how to do that effectively, you know?
Well, and I also feel like, because I've really thought about this a lot, because I've been trying to figure out like why, do I feel shame about the fact that I can do that? Is that a positive? Is it a negative? Does it make me less of a real artist? Like I've had all of those kind of thoughts over the years, especially once I started doing sync. Then it was like, oh well, I'm a sync artist now. Like it's always like I'm never good enough to be considered whatever in my mind I think that the world wants me to be, and so like I'm always having to fight those kind of inner demons. But vocally I feel like a lot of people could do that, but I think I don't know. Sometimes I wonder if people choose, or they think like they find a certain way that they use their voice, that they're like, this is what I think sounds good. And so this is how I sing. And I'm always going to do that. I'm not going to, try anything else. I wonder if it's that, or if it's that, or like psychosomatic, like you said, like I bet you that is true for you, because I was very much like that. Even when I was in like one of the first live bands that I was in Maine, we were doing cover songs of stuff. And the girl that I was singing with, I would always say things like, oh, I can't hit that note. And she was like, yeah, you can, girl. And I was like, no, I don't think I can, because I didn't know how to use my instrument yet. Like
Yeah.
I would clench or close up my throat, and I didn't know I was doing that, but I was like, no, I can't hit that. And now that I'm older and I've like now tried every different sound with my voice, I actually probably just in the last like 2 or 3 years feel like I actually know how to play this instrument now, and like what it can do. And it's so much more fun. And I'm telling you, like I hit notes now I'm like, I did not know I could do that. Like I genuinely would have told you 5 years ago, absolutely not, I can't do it. But
Yeah.
I can. And it's a matter of like, it's very much that same thing of like when you're writing a song, of like the surrender. It's like surrendering the control of like, what happens if I don't, like, what does that mean? Or whatever, just the fear of like failure or something. I don't know. And then like once you relax enough to just be like, I don't care how it sounds, I'm just going to try it. And it actually, the more you're relaxed, the more easy it is. Like when I sing really belty, it's the easiest for me to sing. Like the hardest stuff for me to sing is the stuff that's like not quite loud and not quite quiet, but it's in my mid range. Like that's the stuff that I'm always like, ooh, this is kind of a weird balance beam for me. But if I have to be like, wow, like that, just
Yeah.
it's like breathing. It just comes out and it feels so good to do it. Like I really want you to do it.
Yeah, dude. So, I mean, well, what kind of mic were you singing into when you were with Blue on Chasing? Like, because I was like, damn, did she
I don't
break the
know.
capsule on that microphone? Because
I
your
don't
your
remember.
voice is just like so forward and so good. It's like, and like the tone and like the pitch is just like, it's like if somebody like just played a note on a B3 and just held, that's how in tune it is, kind of thing. And I was like, God, how, oh man, it's
I don't
in a
know
good
what that
way.
I don't know what that mic was, but I can tell you this too, that I remember when we wrote that day, because we were like, I had just started doing the sync thing, and it was like, should we write for sync? Should we write for, and then Blue was like, let's just have fun. Let's just write whatever. And we were having a conversation about the whole concept of feeling like you don't want to chase things in the industry. And I was telling him how much happier I was now that I was starting to write for sync, because I was like, yeah, I'm not trying to please somebody else now. I'm not chasing a number one. All I'm chasing is, what do I think is good, and like what am I having fun doing, and so that's what I was talking about lyrically in that song.
Mhm.
I'm sure it was a little different for him, but yeah. And it's also just funny too, because I love that you love that vocal so much. But what's funny is when I heard it, I was like, oh, I really wish I could re-sing that. Like, I don't feel like it's not my best. It is absolutely not my, like, I know that I could have done, like, if I was to sing that right now, I would sing it way better.
Mhm. Well, I know that's how we all feel after we record something, but it is so good. Like, trust
Mm.
me. I mean, it is so damn good. And I think that the most fun about that song, the most fun part about that song, from the first time I heard it, obviously you and Blue singing together is fun, and when he goes into his falsetto, trying to
Oh,
trying to
I
get
love
to
it.
where you are, but like that little pre-chorus section, like the more I breathe, you know, that thing, that section harmonically, when it goes into that, it's so interesting. Like, and the way that your two voices work together on that, it's so moody, and
Oh,
like
I love that.
you can feel it, you know, like I always love the way he writes too, like in terms of
Oh, he's a
how,
great writer.
yeah. So I mean, you guys together, it was just, oh man, I'm so glad that I heard that song and then we're talking, because it's like you obviously
Me
have a new
too.
fan, but it really is like a master class in how to sing, like
Mm.
the way that you belt and hit those notes and like get so intimate and soft with it in certain sections, and you can see the breadth of your experience and your range just in that one song. So
Wow.
yeah,
Cool. Well, thank you.
it's super cool. We only have a couple more minutes left. I just wanted to ask you, what is the song you wish you wrote?
The House That Built Me.
What's that? I don't know that.
Miranda Lambert.
Oh, I'm
It's
writing it
a
down.
country song from like maybe 2013 or so.
Okay.
It's just it's one of those songs. It's like I mean, it's called The House That Built Me. It's like someone going back to their childhood home, and the lyrics are like, you know, I thought if I could touch this place or feel it, you know, like I just want to walk around and see it. You know, what is it? Thought if I could touch this place or feel it, the emptiness inside might start healing. Out here, it's like I'm someone else. I thought that maybe I could find myself. If I could walk around, I swear I'll leave. I won't take nothing but a memory from the house that built me.
Oh,
Anyway, it's just,
wow.
it's very beautiful. The melodies and everything. It's just, it's a masterclass in songwriting, honestly. The guy who wrote it, Tom Douglas, he's like the king of country songwriting in Nashville. He's just a poet and he does it really, really well.
Are you in those foxholes right now, writing country music too? Now that you're there?
No.
Yeah.
When I first moved here, I thought about it. I was like, maybe I'll try it. And I did. Like, I did some sessions with people and I wrote some country songs and tried to kind of like get back the thing about country that I love, like 90s country. I was like, this country needs to go back.
Yeah.
And I didn't. I wrote some really beautiful songs, but what I found pretty quickly is that very much like LA, it's still everything is so clicky. It's like who you know. And I wasn't signed with a publisher, so I wasn't like a person that was going to get pushed through those doors. You know what I mean? I'm not saying it would be impossible, but it's just, I just always felt like such an outsider that eventually I just wasn't willing to do the work or like grind to get in those doors, especially for a genre that I don't really listen to. So I didn't really feel like I had any place doing that. So I just kind of stayed in my lane. I live out here in the woods. I write soul songs, I write rock songs, I write pop. I just have fun and it's working. And, you know, maybe someday I'll circle back. I do think about it sometimes and I get ideas, but yeah, not really. I'm not really in that world.
It's
Yet.
interesting community there too, because it's not just country. I mean, there's a bunch of great blues bars and like rock bars and stuff. It's cool.
Oh yeah, and there's a lot of pop. I mean, it's changed a lot even in the years that I've lived here. I moved here in 2014 and it's changed a lot. Like it's not at all just country now. But again, like I'm a bit of a hermit too. Like I'm shy. Like I probably don't seem shy right now, but I am, and like I don't love big crowds, so like I don't really go out. I'm not really a part of the Nashville scene.
I'm the same way, dude. Like I kind of hit my stride during COVID. I like being home.
Yeah, when that first happened, I was like, and I'm also a germaphobe, so hand sanitizer being everywhere, I was like, I can live in this world. This is fine for me.
Yeah. It's so true. My wife talks about it all the time. She's like, you must love this. Like you get to just be home and watch movies and like.
Yeah, like, oh, sorry, I can't do an in-person session. We'll have to do it over Zoom. Too bad.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love it.
Oh man, it's so great. It's weird because like when this all went down, you know, because I was gigging 8 to 10 times a month, like grinding that thing, and then I was like, I'm huge into gear. I'm a guitar player, so I'm like nerd for gear. So my buddy was like, dude, just start doing, you know, YouTube videos and do demos and guitar lessons. And then this idea came to me just to hang with cool people that I admire and want to learn more about your path and your story. It's so cool how, I mean, you've traversed the country, you know, back and forth and like where you are now and like finding your lane, like you were talking about. I mean, it's inspiring, Lindsey. It really, and I think that's the thing about this channel and what I try to impart to people is like, they're like not everybody is going to be a pop star, right? Like you definitely can be. If you want it, you got.
I'm pretty old now.
Yeah,
I'm gonna go home. I've
nah.
got these wrinkles coming in. I'm like, oh
Oh,
geez, oh
trust
God.
me. I know.
Turn this ring light up. Hold on.
Yeah, I know. Trust me. But what I think is cool is just the fact that you're like, dude, I found my lane. I'm happy. And that's
Yeah.
what it's about. And then I think that's what it's about being a musician these days is finding what speaks to you and what speaks to your audience, you know?
Yeah.
But I
Well,
never
I think it's that, and I think it's also being flexible and willing to accept when that chapter has closed. Because I feel like I'm about to be done with sync. Not 100%. Like I'll always do it a little bit because I like it and I like teaching it now. Like I like helping other people that are kind of new to it. But I'm starting to find that I'm like, there's only so many things that I've seen work in sync. So it's now become where it used to feel like free for me. And it used to feel like I can do anything. Now I'm like, I've learned what works. And I'm like, oh, it's actually it is a little bit in a box. And now I'm feeling a little bit like constrained. And I'm like, no, I want to do something else now. So like the newer songs that I've been writing, like I wrote a couple this weekend that are just, I don't even know what they are for the genre. I guess singer songwriter, but they're definitely jazz influenced. They have all of those like early things that we talked about influences for me are now coming in. And I'm at a point now where I'm like, all right, I want to write stuff 100% for me, not for sync, not for radio, not for anything, not even for anyone else to tell me that they like it. Like, sure, I'm going to feel bad if they hate it, but I also like, I will, but I also know that like, I'm at an age now where it's like, it's more about just authenticity and being really, really true to myself. And it's funny to me that it took this long, but like, then again, it's not because I always take the long way. Everybody else goes on the highway and I'm like, I'm taking the back road and I'm going to go over here for a minute and pick some wildflowers. And then somehow I'm like, I don't even know how like the fact that I've found success and been so sort of ADD in my career in itself is I'm really lucky, I guess.
Well, I mean, you got a lot of talent, so there's a lot of horsepower under the hood. So it's,
Well, and like I was saying, I think that I would say that one of my strengths is that I am willing to be flexible. So if something's not working, like it wasn't working in LA, the pop writing, it for whatever reason at that moment it wasn't working. So I took a pivot. And right now I'm starting to feel like this might be at the end of working and I'll pivot and I'll just keep, and I don't know where I'll end up. I really don't know.
When's the next full-length record coming out?
I don't know. A good question. I mean, hopefully by the end of, I want to be able to say that it would be the end of this year because I have so many songs that I just haven't recorded that no one's heard that are my secret, like little gems. So,
Yeah.
it's just a matter of me taking the time to record them or collaborating with the right producer. And I'm going to be bold and try to manifest and be positive and say, by the end of the year, I will have a full length Lindsey Ray album. That's
Amen.
what I'm going to aim for.
A freaking man. All right, Lindsey, you ready to do this lightning round? Get down.
Yes.
All right. So here are the rules. There are no rules. It's like Fight Club. Now, for real. We're going to cruise at an altitude of 112 BPM because it feels comfy and cozy. Okay. And I'm going to ask you 10 questions. You can explain your answers if you'd like, Lindsey, in between. You don't have to, but okay. I love hearing explanations as to why you chose that, if you'd like.
Okay. All
right. Here we go. Question 1 is always the same. Lennon or McCartney?
Lennon.
All right. Cotton candy or funnel cake?
No, neither.
I know, right?
Funnel cake. I'll say funnel cake.
All right. Exercise or Netflix?
Exercise.
All right. New England summers or Nashville summers?
New England summers, hands down.
Profanity in lyrics, yay or nah?
There's a time and place for it. It just depends. If it's, I wrote a song recently that, well, it's not profanity, but I say, oh, damn, at the end of the chorus each time, but it's like, it's necessary.
Yeah.
So if it's like, it's the thing, you know what I mean? So it just depends.
All right. Coffee or tea?
Coffee.
Wearing the shirt of the band you're going to see. Party foul or okay?
I mean, I think it's okay. I think it's okay.
All right.
Yeah, why not show support? That's nice.
I'd
be excited if someone came to a show of mine and they were wearing my merch. I'd be psyched.
Yeah, I totally agree. Puppies or kittens?
Puppies. I can't believe
Uh,
I said that. That's
ah.
crazy. I mean, that's crazy. Puppies.
Live one life that's 1,000 years long, or 10 lives that are 100 years long each.
10. 10
10.
lives, 100 years. Yeah, I want to have a new experience. Like sometimes I am sick of being me and I just want to be somebody else. Like
I
when I
get it.
meet people like you, like I'm like, I want to know what it's like to be you. And I'm a little sad that I'll never know. That's unfortunate.
You can ask me anytime.
I know, but it won't be the same.
Yeah, it won't. All right, so here's the last one, Lindsey. Sometimes it's the hardest, sometimes it's the easiest. If you could take one album, and like an album as a whole, you take one album, it does not have to be your favorite album of all time, but one album that you could erase from your memory just so you could go back and listen to it and experience it for the first time again.
Mm.
What album would that be?
Woo! Rufus Wainwright, Want One.
All right, now you have to tell me why that one. That is one I want to know why.
I love all of his albums, but that's the one that has like every song on it. I love, and Go Ahead is one of my favorite songs of his, and that's on there. And I'm pretty sure Beautiful Child is on the Want One album, and that song, it's that album is one of those albums that the first time I listened to it, I would find a song that I was like, okay, this is a song. I'm going to listen to this over and over. And then there'd be other ones that I was like, they're okay. But I listened to it so much that eventually every song was the favorite. Like there were no duds. Everything had its moment and its purpose, and the flow of it was perfect, and it was just perfection. It's genius songwriting, incredible singing. The musicality of it is beyond. The production, the backgrounds, like whatever is happening. I don't remember the name of the guy that produced that, but I did watch a documentary once, and I want to say he's French, and his name's like Pierre something. Anyway, it's not, yeah, I should probably know that, but I think it's a perfect album.
Nice. You made it through the lightning round get down.
I loved it.
Really quick, off that last comment, has there anybody that you have worked with that you've been like starstruck to work with?
So many.
Yeah.
Rodney Jerkins, one of them. Do you know Rodney Jerkins?
He
did all that. So he's like Dark Child. So like back in the early R&B days for me in junior high, like Beyonce and all that stuff, like the beginning of all those songs is like Dark Child. Like 1999 was a hot Dark Child year for whatever reason.
Oh, okay.
Like
that
he was
rings
killing
a bell.
it. He produced everything. So he's like, well, I shouldn't say he's like Timbaland, they're different, but he was one of those people that, and he did all the Brandy stuff. So all those albums that I grew up on, he was the guy, and I knew about him, and I was like, someday I need to meet him. And then eventually I did. I was in a meeting one time with some guy, and they were like, oh, I know Rodney. I'll hook you up with him. Boom. I go in, and I worked with Rodney, and he liked me. Like he thought I was great, and it was,
dude, that's awesome.
It was the best. But I was absolutely, completely starstruck, and yeah.
Yeah. Oh man, good for you, Lindsey. Thank you so much for doing this. This was so lovely.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, and
I wish really you fun.
Thank you. Wish you nothing but the best. I mean, everybody, you got to go check Lindsey out. Lindsey, tell them like your website and everything where they can find you, so they can go listen to your music.
LindseyRay.com. Lindsey with an E, LindseyRay.com. You can also find me on Instagram. My handle is Lindsey Ray Bleu. And then my other projects, if people want to follow Rayel or Oleana, those are the three sort of personas that I release music under. Rayel, it's Rayelle. The website's Rayel Music. You can find that on Instagram as well. And then Oleana, kind of like Pollyanna, but Ollie, OLLYANNA, and that's kind of another version of me that gets put out into the world. So yeah, if you're curious about the versatility, I would check out all three of those, and you'll get a nice picture.
I would second that. Everybody go check out Lindsey's music. It's beautiful, and you'll hear the voice that I'm talking about and gushing about. It's so amazing. So Lindsey, thank you again. Everybody, take care of yourself, take care of each other, and we'll see you next time.